I returned home on Friday evening, fatigued from a demanding week of travel, with the intention of spending time with my wife and our 3 largely autonomous children. Our family unit comprises a nuclear family with a blended family structure, and we have been married for 22 years. Perhaps we could embark on an enjoyable excursion together? My name is David Collins, a courteous mechanic and the senior member of the arrival and departure crew on the day shift. After 25 years of working different shifts, my wife, Judith Collins, was a senior nurse at Central Hospital, also working the day shift, dealing with labor and delivery. We both earn a satisfactory income. In terms of financial resources, I possess slightly more than she does, largely due to the benefits afforded by our union. Collectively, we can be considered to belong to the upper middle class. I proceeded to park the pickup truck in its customary location within the garage and secured the gate. Should we wish to enjoy ourselves, it would be in her Lincoln Navigator. However, if the planned activity was a country western night, my preference would be the F-250. The vehicle would be prepared, the evening would be at my wife's discretion. In any case, it was of no concern to me if my mother was pleased and my father delighted. I proceeded from the garage into the kitchen and examined the mail on the table. I heard a sound upstairs and the footsteps of someone descending the stairs. My attractive 42-year-old the year was my wife entered the living room in a short robe, which never failed to elicit a positive response from me. She inquired as to the time, noting that I had arrived earlier than anticipated. I checked my watch and realized that I was indeed early, but not by as much as I had expected. I inquired as to her plans for the evening. On where are we going? Well, I'm leaving. I am unaware of your current activities. I must say that my weekend plans have been significantly disrupted. Could you please clarify where you are going and with whom? Her gaze fell upon the small bag at the end of the sofa. I have a prior engagement with William Stratmore. It is for the... I will be home on Sunday evening, and we can discuss it then. What did she just say? I thought I needed to finish packing. She turned and ran upstairs, and I heard the door slam. There is no way she will be going. I told myself, my first thought was that I required assistance. I retrieved my cellular telephone and initiated a call to my daughter's number. I was disinclined to assume the role of the antagonist due to my wife's statements. Hello, Daddy. What's up? She inquired in a cheerful tone. I proceeded to place my wife's bag on the coffee table. I requested her immediate presence. Immediately, my mother sustained a head injury, necessitating assistance. I was compelled to contact my father, who was already aware of the situation. I informed my son of the same message, with an additional request for him to contact his brother and instruct him to arrive promptly. However, I had already terminated the call. I then promptly contacted her parents and conveyed the same information to them. They were equally perplexed, and there were several exclamations as I terminated the call from Judith's bag, which had spilled its contents, including credit cards, keys, and 12 packs of alcohol. I had also retained a copy of an email confirmation from a hotel room, which included the cost of $700. I proceeded to $710. I was under the impression that William Stratmore was one of the pediatric surgeons at her workplace over the past 5 years. I had encountered him on several occasions at the hospital Christmas party. He was a slippery individual, and that was the most favorable description I could offer. His wife was remarkably attractive, but I sensed that she had issues with him. I confiscated the credit cards and car keys and then took the email and placed it in my pocket as a precaution. I retrieved my mobile phone and opened it. Her code was our anniversary date. She was still occupied upstairs. I then proceeded to retrieve her emergency contact list from her place of employment. Upon doing so, I discovered the contact details of a medical professional. While his mobile number was not necessary, his home number could prove useful. I proceeded to call the number, which was answered after 2 rings. "Oh dear, I was expecting your call," the man on the other end of the line said. "I don't recognize this number. Is everything all right? Is this Mrs. Stratmore?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is David Collins. My wife is the head nurse at the hospital where your husband works. I don't know if you remember me." "Yes, Dave. I remember my husband and I were discussing you and your wife a couple of days ago. Upon receiving the call, I was anticipating a call from William. "What can I do for you?" I inquired, hoping to ascertain whether your husband was not at home. I was informed that he was in Boston, attending a surgical conference. I then inquired as to the well-being of Mrs. Stratmore. I was told that she had a disagreement with her husband and that she intended to spend the weekend with him at a hotel until Sunday evening. I was perplexed by this information. I suggested that perhaps both of them were being untruthful. I then presented evidence that contradicted their claims. I had an email confirmation for the rental of 7 adjoining rooms on the 7th floor, from today until Monday. Mr. Collins, I will respond to your message as soon as possible. I have reached my limit with this situation. I consulted the emergency contact list and located the number for Karen Adams, the head of the hospital's health department. I was acquainted with her and her husband, who was a detective sergeant. I called her number and she responded promptly. "Hello. Who is this?" "This is David Collins, Judith's husband." "Oh, hello, Dave. What can I do for you?" "I'm afraid I have some concerns. I believe there may be some inappropriate activities occurring. I am writing to request that Dr. Stratmore and my wife investigate and stop these activities. I regret to inform you that I am unable to speak at this time." I received a call from Judith's mobile phone. I could not believe what I was hearing. I answered the call before I could say anything. The caller began, "Judith, he knows everything." "What did you tell him?" I interrupted, "Not everything, Karen. I am gradually finding out." The sharp gasp on the other end of the line was very telling. I then immediately found her home. I proceeded to dial the number, which I had been given, and it rang 4 times before being answered. The man on the other end of the line stated, "Listen, I don't want to update my cable service, Jerry. It sounds like you've had a bad day." I then informed him that Judith was away, babysitting her children that weekend. He proceeded to inquire about her whereabouts, asking if she was home. I informed him that she was not, as I was instead attending a team-building retreat sponsored by a hospital in Philadelphia. I then proceeded to provide him with the information I had learned and suspected, indicating that I believed that it was not just the 3 individuals involved, but that there were in fact 7 hotel rooms involved. The other end of the line was filled with silence. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? He was a police officer, and I could discern the processes occurring in his mind. Then Judith descended the stairs, her appearance evoking that of an expensive call girl. She was clad in a red silk dress with a plunging neckline that extended nearly to her waist, and it was split to the right up to mid-thigh. She observed her bag placed upon the table. "I require your assistance in retrieving my belongings, which you have discarded. I am currently in a state of undress, and I am not willing to accept such a situation. Please cease your objections and assume a seated position." She recoiled and asserted, "I am not answerable to you. I am at liberty to act at my discretion, and I am similarly at liberty to act at yours. Do you like this?" I inquired, reaching out to grasp the deep neckline of her dress and tearing it downwards. She was suddenly practically naked, standing there in an open-cup bra, a French lace garter belt, and smoky gray seamed stockings. She let out a scream and wail, "My dress! No, no, it's not yours." The dress was purchased for our 25th wedding anniversary, along with the majority of the lingerie currently worn by the subject. Should the subject intend to leave the residence this evening, it is unlikely that the dress will be worn. The subject's mobile phone then rang. "Hello, Dave Collins. This is Mary Stratmore. I must apologize for the inconvenience, but the information provided by the caller, identified as Dave Collins, was indeed accurate. I contacted the police and informed them that the vehicle in question was stolen. I had purchased the vehicle for him and it is registered in my name. They apprehended him approximately 5 minutes ago. He initially claimed that he was my husband and therefore had the right to operate the vehicle. However, he subsequently admitted that he was not my husband. I heard him in the background loudly informing the police that it was impossible. "My husband is in Boston," he gasped, and said he needed a lawyer. "I have to go down and sort out this mess. He's been arrested, and the car has been impounded. Tell your wife I'll come for her next time." We were talking on speakerphone, and Judith realized who was calling. Judith gasped and screamed, What did you do, David? Damn you. Just then, my children ran in. What's going on, Mom? Are you okay? They asked. Dave Jr. and Haley burst into the room and went to her. Mother, are you well? What has happened to your attire? Your father's murderous glares were directed at me. What have you done? Tell them why, Judith. Go ahead. Why do you have 12 packs of protection in your bag? Are you planning to make water balloons? I do not know where they came from. They are not mine, Judith said in an almost inaudible voice. Where were you headed? A sexy weekend without your husband is not what you meant. I can do what I want. It is my body. As soon as she said it, Judith realized the impact of her words, especially in a quieter voice. She informed her children that it was her business. Young Dave rolled his eyes and proceeded to the kitchen to retrieve a beverage. A few minutes later, he returned with an envelope addressed to his father. He regarded his mother with disdain. Judith, she abruptly stood and removed herself from the couch, her dress trailing behind her. She implored her daughter to prevent her from reading the note. Haley rushed to assist her mother in covering herself. Judith urged her mother to remain silent and resume her seat. I opened the envelope and read aloud, "My dear husband, my sister is taking care of Mom and needs. I will be providing assistance to them this weekend and will be home on Monday evening. Hugs and kisses, Judith." The children looked at each other, uncertain of how to respond. I realized that she had written the note before facing me. Her confusion and panic would be her downfall. Then, as if by fate, while Michael was preoccupied with munching on popcorn and watching a television program, the doorbell rang. Before he could open it, Judith's parents, her mother and father, burst into the room. Judith's mother inquired about her well-being, while her father demanded an explanation for the situation. Judith fainted. "Welcome to the tumultuous situation," her mother said. "Your daughter has just caused irreparable damage to our marriage and potentially jeopardized her own career." Her mother and I attempted to revive Judith, while her father grew increasingly enraged. I proceeded to inform them of what had transpired only served to exacerbate the already tense atmosphere. Judith regained consciousness and surveyed her surroundings in a state of distress. She implored her mother for assistance, insisting that she needed help. Judith's mother was urged to call her sister for support. It was suggested that perhaps the sister could reciprocate by assisting Judith's mother. These words were conveyed to Judith's father as he read the note aloud. He proceeded to dial Mavis's sister's number. The call was answered with a cheerful, "Hello? Judith has been of significant assistance. I am uncertain as to how I would manage without her. Would it be possible for me to speak with her? I was informed that she was currently occupied. I suggested that I ask her to call me back shortly." Judith's mother took the phone and admonished her other daughter. "There was no need for that, you arrogant young woman," Mavis screamed. She then began to weep uncontrollably. Judith was unable to bear the situation any longer and collapsed to the floor. She was now almost entirely exposed in front of her children and parents. She informed them not to inquire about her health. The call was terminated amidst her other daughter's muffled cries. At this juncture, my telephone rang once more. It was David on the line. "You were correct, Jerry. I obtained a search warrant for the 7 hotel rooms. We conducted a search based on the missing persons warrant I issued under oath. We found 12 additional individuals, including my wife, 3 male doctors, 4 female doctors, 4 nurses, and another woman from the HR team. My wife was also present. I am truly sorry, Jerry. However, the situation has arisen, and we must accept it. Thank you." I then turned to my soon-to-be former colleague. "My wife should go upstairs and put on something more appropriate and leave the premises." She lifted her glass of wine and rose to her feet, then paused and said, "Please do not expel me in such a hasty manner. Do you intend to dismiss me abruptly, as you have previously done, citing your own personal autonomy and the right to make decisions regarding your own body? I have been tempted on numerous occasions to engage in sexual intercourse with the young waitress at the diner where we typically have coffee after our night shift. I could have become romantically involved with The woman at the Lincoln dealership where we purchased the vehicle informed me that even your own sister had made advances towards me. However, I was in love with you, and this is the thanks I get? Get out of my life, scum. She became visibly distressed, turned and ran upstairs, losing a high-heeled shoe along the way. Silence fell over the living room. Then my daughter said, "I'll go and make sure she doesn't do anything stupid, Dad." Judith came downstairs approximately 30 minutes later wearing jeans and carrying a suitcase. Her attire was also a source of concern, as her makeup and hair were a disaster. My older son stopped her at the door and informed her that he and Adrian would be responsible for planning the wedding, ensuring that it would not interfere with any of her sexual activities. It is worth noting that she was not invited to the wedding. Dave's girlfriend, who was previously serious about him, was now with Adrian. However, we were unaware of the seriousness of their relationship. At that moment, we realized that we had made a mistake. Judith stopped at the front door, and her mother escorted her out. Her father turned to me and asked, "Is there any way to get through this? She requires assistance, yet it appears that no incident has occurred. She may discuss the matter with my legal counsel. It is important to remember that she holds feelings of affection for you." I gazed at him with sincerity and stated, "It is an unconventional method of demonstrating these emotions." The intriguing aspect was that they were all espousing the same sentiments. Adults, all of whom were aware of their actions, nevertheless believed they were acting correctly until they were apprehended. It was then revealed that the esteemed physician had utilized a company credit card belonging to the hospital to reserve rooms and pay for beverages and sustenance for the weekend gathering. The hospital attempted to circumvent the scandalous affair received significant media attention. 8 individuals were listed as being on duty or attending a fictitious official seminar or hospital event when the scandal broke. Several marriages subsequently ended in divorce. This was not the first party, but it was undoubtedly the last. I filed for divorce, as I loved her more than my luggage, as the saying goes. I allowed the divorce proceedings to continue while she attended counseling. The child remained by my side and observed that I was at least making an effort. However, the pain was excruciating, and it felt like a bolt from the blue. I was previously unaware of the situation. The airline was sympathetic and I was granted an extended sick leave. The other individuals involved lost their jobs. The doctor was dismissed from his position and subsequently sued and held accountable. My wife lost her job, as did her assistant. There was a severe shortage of nurses, and several physician positions opened up. My wife was recruited by the sex club, as they were always looking for new members. They had noticed her for quite some time, and Karen had been working on. She asserted that she owed it to herself, that it would be enjoyable, that I would never discover her infidelity, and that many husbands are pleased when their wives engage in sexual relations with other men. It took 6 months, but eventually, they convinced her to engage in the act. It took over a year, but I loved her and could not live without her. I observed her closely, questioning her frequently about her emotional state and the state of our relationship. I listened closely to her reports and was able to discern that she was becoming increasingly distressed. However, through her interactions with her therapist, her parents, and our children, she came to recognize that I was making significant efforts to support her. Despite the pain she was experiencing, she expressed her love for me. I was convinced of her sincerity, and I initiated legal action against the hospital and Dr. Stratmore. I had to navigate the complexities of his wife's divorce proceedings, but I was able to secure a favorable outcome for myself and my children. The hospital did not fare as well in the litigation. My children and I reached a settlement outside of court, and the terms were confidential. A total of 7 figures was awarded to the other plaintiffs in sealed settlements. My sister-in-law, the legal counsel, was not a welcome presence in my life. I am unsure if her parents still maintain communication with her. I consider myself fortunate with the outcome of the situation. I was able to utilize my cognitive abilities effectively and receive support from my children and friends. I did not believe I took my marriage for granted, but perhaps I did. It took over a year, but we were able to reconcile. Our sexual relationship is currently satisfying. On occasion, she experiences postcoital bliss and expresses remorse for the pain she caused. However, the situation is gradually improving. As previously stated, I love her, but I am not inclined to yield to her demands. Approximately 8 months after this tumultuous period, I encountered the physician exiting the gym. I severely assaulted him, fracturing 3 of his fingers and severely injuring one of his extremities. His physical appearance was significantly altered. Fortunately, I had a police officer with me at the time. He was a very imposing figure. I am aware that my actions were unorthodox and somewhat brutal. I am aware that my response was inappropriate and that I should not have resorted to such tactics. However, I am also aware that I have a responsibility to protect my wife, and I will continue to do so.